Welcome to the channel, Larry Johnson. Once more.
Thanks for having me back. Yeah,
it's always a pleasure.
I tried to wear out my welcome last time, but you know, you're just a very you're a very tolerant person.
Thank you so much. I want to ask you about this. We'll talk about the peace proposal from the United States. I have a couple of questions. Welcome to the channel, Larry Johnson. Once more.
Thanks for having me back. Yeah,
it's always a pleasure.
I tried to wear out my welcome last time, but you know, you're just a very you're a very tolerant person.
Thank you so much. I want to ask you about this. We'll talk about the peace proposal from the United States. I have a couple of questions. It seems that General Kellogg?
Yes.
Being sort of kicked out, and there's this new guy called Driscoll.
Yeah. I'm just waiting for Captain Crunch to show up. Okay. Sorry.
For the Swedish audience, that is a famous cereal, a breakfast snack.
As is Kellogg's cornflakes, you know.
Right.
So that's sorry.
Sort of connects it all. Yeah, but to me, this Driscoll guy seems to be a little bit more informed and better, or no?
Yeah, apparently he's a buddy from college days of J.D. Vance, the vice president.
Right.
He's Secretary of the Army.
And I thought he was Navy before, no?
No, well,
Army or Navy doesn't matter.
But he's Secretary of the Army right now, not Secretary of the Navy. So yeah, apparently his job was to go tell the Ukrainians the bad news. Hey, you're getting your butt kicked. You're losing. Which, you know, even Helen Keller could figure out that they're losing. You know, she is deaf, dumb, and blind.
Right.
But you know, it's still this is just it's all theater. It's becoming more apparent with each passing day. This is not a serious proposal. Okay.
Right.
This proposal is I call it Minsk 3. Minsk 2 was born out of the looming defeat of the Ukrainian army at Debaltseve by the militias of Donetsk and Luhansk, backed up by the Wagner Group. And at that time, Chancellor Merkel of Germany flew to Moscow to beg, plead, cajole Vladimir Putin into signing on, supporting Minsk 2, which Putin did. And I think he now concedes that was a foolish mistake on his part. Because the purpose of Minsk 2 was not to bring an end to the fighting between Ukraine and the Russian speakers in the Donbass. It was simply to buy Ukraine time so they could rebuild their army, re-equip, modernize, so that they would be able to go back in and conquer the Donbass the next time, which is what they were aiming to do in February of 2022. So the reason this peace plan has popped up all of a sudden is Ukraine's getting its ass handed to it. It is losing massively across the entire 1,000-mile front. It's in terms of killed and wounded soldiers each month, about 40,000 a month. Take them off the ledger. Desertions are between 20 and 40,000 a month. The 40,000 a month figure comes from the Institute for the Study of War. Right. Not exactly what you'd call a pro-Russian outfit, given that its ties to Victoria Nuland and the Kagans and people like Jack Keane.
Well, they actually produced reports over the years from that institute that is a complete lie.
Yeah, yeah.
I've read it, and you know, I was in awe. How can they think things like this? They're just out of it. But now, reality sets in, I guess.
Well, that's what's happening, and so at a minimum, the Ukrainians are losing 60,000 troops a month, and they're only recruiting, according to Ukrainian sources, 17,000. So just do the math. They're losing if you did that in terms of if your income was you got $17,000 a month, but you had $60,000 a month in expenses, guess what? You're going bankrupt.
Exactly.
And that's what's happening to Ukraine. So this is another belated effort to try to save Ukraine, and they can't be saved because to have the only agreement that Russia will accept is an agreement that demilitarizes Ukraine, and to demilitarize Ukraine means that Ukraine can no longer have the largest army in Europe, for God's sake, which is exactly what they're proposing in this plan.
They were talking
insane.
about 800,000.
800,000. Go back. What I did
They had
last night.
240 when this conflict initiated
Exactly.
in 2022.
Plus 900,000 in reserve.
Exactly.
Well, right now, today, if you combine the armies of the United Kingdom, France, and Germany, those three armies together would still be smaller than the 800,000 they're proposing for Ukraine. This is beyond crazy.
But wait a minute. Add another 10,000 Finns and Swedes.
Yeah. So their proposal is to create the largest army in NATO. That army would be larger than the U.S. Army.
Yeah.
Okay, so and the fact that these Europeans and some in the West are talking about this, yeah, that's a good idea, shows how divorced from reality they are. And Russia's not going to accept that.
There's no way.
The Russia and Ukraine had actually in March 2022 agreed at Istanbul talks that Russia could live with an 85,000 man force in Ukraine. Okay, we can live with that. But 850,000, that ain't happening.
I know.
No, done. So
it's fantasy.
It's the demilitarization, and then the second element is denazification, meaning no more Nazis, neo-Nazis, Banderaites running the government in Ukraine. They got to be out. And either the international observers can be set up that will ensure those kinds of elections where these neo-Nazis are excluded, or Russia is going to defeat Ukraine militarily and will impose a government, just like the United States imposed the government in Germany at the end of World War II with Russia, or the then Soviet Union, just like the United States imposed a government in Japan on the Japanese at the end of World War II. Russia will do the same for Ukraine. This is going to be settled on the battlefield. This will not be settled around a table full of negotiators.
Yeah, I think it was Scott Ritter today that got the question from Judge Napolitano. If this conflict in the Ukraine between NATO basically and Russia would end in a conference room or in the battlefield. And Scott Ritter was very quick to answer, on the battlefield.
Yeah.
Nowhere else.
No.
So another thing, I do a show in Swedish language sometimes, maybe once a month, what I call the Krigsrapporten, which is...
The war report, right?
The war report, yeah. The German word, you know German, so Krieg.
Da. Well, I mean, yeah.
But I got so much people criticizing what I said recently was just what we talked about right now. And they go, no, I have information that Putin's generals are protesting and it's not they're losing. Russia is losing. And I listened to Ursula von der Leyen just today, a speech in the European Parliament, she being the unelected president of the European Commission. She says, the EU cannot tolerate that Ukraine gives up any territory. We need to send more money to support their war effort in Ukraine, and no reduction of the army or the armed forces of Ukraine is acceptable. And she got applauses
Yeah.
in the parliament, these 719 dumbwits.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it is. I said the disconnect from reality is just astonishing. I find that they continue to push this nonsense. Like the generals, or the claim about the Russian generals. Well, I spent some time last week with Lieutenant General Abdialudinov, a hero of the Soviet Union, of Russia, not the Soviet Union, the hero of Russia, one of the most highly decorated generals in the Russian army. Tremendous leader, tremendous. He always leads from the front. He never asks his soldiers to do something he's not going to do first.
Okay.
He's quite confident that, like I said, this will end. Russia would prefer to end this diplomatically, with Ukraine agreeing to demilitarize and denazify. But if Ukraine doesn't do that, Russia's going to make them do that. It's that simple. And the West can holler and stomp its feet and scream and yell and do whatever. It's not going to change the reality of the battlefield. The United States and Europe have no leverage over this. I mean, Europe, the Europeans, and I'm lumping in Norway and Sweden in this crowd too, foolishly believe that you're important, that you're relevant. You're not relevant. I mean, it's akin to like we're going to have an orchestra play the 1812 Tchaikovsky Symphony. And you guys, the Europeans, show up and they're carrying a bunch of harmonicas. Sorry, harmonicas aren't needed in this production of this orchestra. You're irrelevant to the performance.
Yeah.
There's not a single thing that Europe produces that Russia needs. Not one thing. There are lots of things that Russia produces that Europe needs and can't live without. So understand where that power relationship is.
Exactly.
And yet,
but unfortunately, our small nations of both Finland and Sweden, situated on the same landmass in the outskirts of Northern Europe, our defense minister, Paul Johnson, he has the same last name as you do, but it's spelled different. And he also Johnson. Yeah. He suggested that Sweden needs to acquire long-distance missiles, and that is urgent. And he said the scenario is that NATO already have been attacked by Russia in a future scenario, which would activate Article 5 in the NATO treatment or agreements. And then Sweden could have the capability of firing long-distance weapons far into Russian territory. He actually says this publicly. What? Does he want an Oreshnik in his head? Or is there already a fire burning in his brain? He's like Lindsey Graham.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if he shares Lindsey Graham's private personal habits either, which may explain something. No, look, never. I've grown up. I learned early on, never underestimate your opponent. And if you're going to pick a fight, make sure that A, you're in the right, and B, that you got the means to finish it. And usually a lot of fights break out because people aren't thinking, they're just reacting emotionally. The Russians have learned over the years to think rationally, not emotionally, with respect to military matters. And what we're seeing out of the Baltic states, out of the Scandinavian nations, out of the continental European nations, a lot of emotion. And yeah, this is a sexist thing to say, but I'm going to say it. They are acting like a bunch of women. Huh. Von der Leyen, fond of lying, Kaya Kallas, they're women.
Yeah.
But and let's admit, guys like Macron, they're, he's supposedly married to a dude. Um, there really is this, if we attribute it to a female outlook, this, very emotional. Now, I grant you that's probably an unfair stereotype, but whatever it is one that the Europeans are not in touch. They don't have the military capability. They don't have the military industrial base to sustain a modern war, and yet they continue to seem keen on starting one.
Yeah.
Good luck with that.
And another one is Starmer. I mean, he's going from crazy to craziest.
Yeah.
He actually said in some interview recently, the reason we can't let Ukraine lose the war is that our industry producing weapons would lose 6 billion pounds. I don't know if they have that kind of an industry at all. I know Rheinmetall in Germany is profiting heavily from financed, weapon production.
Yeah, as have Raytheon, General Dynamics, Boeing, Lockheed Martin.
In Sweden, Saab.
Shareholders in these companies that have contracts to fund the military, the state militaries, they're doing well. Nothing to complain about.
Yeah. All righty. I won't take up more of your time, but we also have this with the nuclear risk or the nuclear weapons. Is it the INF treaty that runs out, or is it the START?
START is running out. INF was abandoned by Donald Trump in 2018, I believe.
I think 2019, but okay.
Was it 2019? Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So, but he walked away from that, and that's now why you got the Oreshnik missile. Yeah. Russia said, "Okay, we're free of those obligations. Great, we're going to build this." They built it. U.S. doesn't have anything that can compete with it.
Yeah, they also have developed the Burevestnik.
Yeah, the Burevestnik and the Poseidon, and again, the so-called Western experts just. They poo-poo it. They say, "Oh, this is crap. The Russians are lying." I've always, adopted the attitude: I'm going to listen to what the Russians say, and I'm going to believe them, because generally they're not a bunch of bullshitters. They're not out lying. They usually pretty good about telling the truth.
Yeah, that's a huge difference to many of our political leaders, but they're facing large, heavy unpopularity.
Yeah,
I mean, in Germany, Merz was a confidence vote, 10%, 15%. Macron, the same thing. Starmer, the same thing. In Sweden, we have a difficult political landscape because there's blocks, and some of them going out, some of them going in, but they basically agree on something that the voters in Sweden didn't want.
Yeah.
We have 8 different political parties, which basically is 8 uni-parties.
Mm-hmm. Well, I must admit, my knowledge of Sweden is basically limited to the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo series. Great series. Well,
yeah, that's a pretty good drama.
But let me ask you: Can you recall a time in history, Sweden's history or the history of Europe, where you've had such a disconnect between political leaders and the public?
No, you'd have to go back to the 1600s in that case. I mean, no, I can't even through history, through studying European history, find anything worse than we have today. To be honest, that's my opinion.
Yeah. No, I agree with you fully, and that was sort of my thinking. but I don't really have a fact. It's sort of a gut instinct. It's just,
No,
and we're seeing it here in the U.S. as well.
right. But the U.S. doesn't have the long history. I mean, it
Right,
starts
right.
1773, basically. But, if you listen to Doug McGregor, who's a great historian, he said something about the city of Poltava,
Hmm.
which is located by the Dnieper River in north central Ukraine. Sweden suffered its defeat in the year 1709, I believe it was, and was wiped out of Russia militarily on the battlefield in the city of Poltava by the Russians. And since then, Sweden has been very careful. We have not had a direct war with anybody in exceeding 200 years
Hmm.
up till today, until in 2023, when we joined NATO. We joined the club to be involved in direct war.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's insane.
yeah, it's totally insane. And there's a big movement against this. But like I said, none of the political parties in the Swedish parliament are against NATO. None of them are against the membership of the European Union. None. So Swedish voters next year, 2026, have no choice other than to try to vote for small parties that are developing outside the ruling eight. But they're going to be suppressed by all the media. They don't have finances. And I'm part of one of them. We want, votes. We want people to vote. We have no political program. It's called Knapptryckarna. You can see it here. Meaning press red or green, yes or no. Ask the Swedish people, do we want to be in NATO? Do we want to be with the euro? Do we want to have digital currency and identification cards? Our driver's license are going to be digital if they get what they want? Yeah. Ask people about these questions. That's what we say. And then there's a couple other parties that are really, really good, but no financing, no media. So the change is hard to do. Yeah.
Well, the dysfunction continues up to a point. Then finally, there is a revolution. There is a revolt. I mean, Russia, the Soviet Union went through it, 1991.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
And that's where I think the West is headed, towards a similar sort of crisis, collapse of confidence in the government, and we'll see. But a very dangerous time, because these leaders can make very stupid, emotional decisions and end up really triggering a broader war. But, I think Russia does understand what it's up against and is just taking its time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're deliberately going slow on the battlefield just to spare soldiers' lives. And I understand that tactic that they're doing. All right, Mr. Johnson, thanks for this conversation. I really appreciate you taking your time, and I hope to see you on my channel again.
Hey, Håkan, I always have time for you.
Thank you so much.
And you stay warm.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah.
This is warm. All right.
Take care.
I don't have Florida weather here, so.
Yeah, that's why I'm rocking this. It's like 20, 25 degrees Celsius today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, here
nice.
Here it's -4 Celsius, which is about 30-ish Fahrenheit.
28.
28, yeah.
Yeah, 28.
But that's good weather for this time of year.
Yeah, I think you'll see Swedes outside in their shorts and t-shirts saying, "Hey, this is warm weather."
Exactly.
All right, my friend. Thanks so much.
Thank you too. Bye.
Bye.